Communication, it's how we humans connect with each other. We share our hopes, our dreams, our aspirations. In professional settings, we share information about projects or tasks that we're working on. And you've probably seen quite a few models of what that looks like, communication that is. On a very basic level, you have a message, you communicate it across a medium, and you receive a response, otherwise known as feedback. That feedback is important. It helps us know whether our message has landed. Did you understand what I hoped you would by what I said? Is the message getting across in the way I intended it? Feedback helps us know whether we've been good at transmitting our message, and if it's feedback on a task, it can help us improve and get better. But sometimes feedback isn't that easy to give or to receive. Why? Oftentimes feedback is seen as something negative. We feel like it's us telling someone about something that they've done wrong. But that's not the case. It can be really difficult to build up to a moment where you have to give someone feedback if it's not something you're used to, because you may think they could take it the wrong way, they could be offended. Maybe I missed the point and everyone else in this room actually thought that was fantastic and there's nothing to improve on. But remembering that feedback isn't only about the things we need to improve, it can also be focusing on what went well. What did you really appreciate about whatever it is that you've observed? That can help us see that feedback is actually a pretty intense gift. And if we get good at giving it well, we can truly be multipliers. We can help people reach their goals. We can make them more effective. So, how do we get good at giving great feedback? Feedback that actually makes people better? Well, here are a few pointers. One of my favorite hobbies is painting. I paint and draw all the time, mostly just for myself. And there was a time many years ago when I completed a pretty intensive piece. It was a long way in the making. I spent many nights slaving over it, and it was the first time I had worked with oil paint. But I showed it to a friend, as I often do. And this friend said, okay, that color it doesn't kind of speak to me. I don't think that kind of black really exists in nature in this kind of setting. Also, I think your perspective may be a little off, because if you look at where this elephant is and the other, and they went on for quite a while. The thing that really struck me was that there was no moment of buy-in. I had not asked for feedback. I was not seeking it in that instance. I was simply saying, I finished my painting, yay! And that's kind of what this first point is about. Creating that little moment of buy-in can really help the person you're giving the feedback to be ready to receive it. I always appreciate it when it's given. I appreciate being given pointers, being told what works well and what I can improve on, because it makes me better in the endeavor that I'm approaching. But in that instance, it kind of just came out of the blue. So what does it look like to get some buy-in? Well, in a professional context, it can simply be, oh, I really love how you completed that presentation. I do think that you seemed a little rushed towards the end, am I right? I have some thoughts about that if you'd like to hear them. Looking back to the example I just gave, a kind of sub-point to that is being clear on your motives. The reason we give feedback is to help the person that we're addressing to do something better, to improve on an approach that they may be using. In the example of the friend who spoke to me, his feedback went on to include, when I paint, I usually make sure that I have my reference photo close by. I also use a grid. I used to struggle with this, but now I've done this. Here, take a look at my work. Feedback is not an opportunity to highlight your own expertise. It's not an opportunity for you to take the stage and talk about how you do things well. It's all about the other person, and I can't emphasize that enough. You're helping someone else attain a goal that they have. You're a mentor in their story, not the hero. So making sure that you are focused on the goals the other person wants to achieve is paramount. Make sure that what you really are working towards is helping them take the next step forward in their journey. Denzel Washington gives lots of great feedback in most of his movies. Specificity. In Man on Fire, he acts as a bodyguard who is appointed to protect a little girl called Peter. He watches her complete a swimming trial at a point in the movie, and he gives her feedback at the end. What do you think you need to do? Fastest in the water, slowest off the blocks. What do you need to do? And she says, get faster off the blocks. That kind of specificity, focusing on what exactly it is that the person needs to accomplish, can help them take a clear, defined next step in their journey. It may not be the whole big goal, but each goal is composed of the tiny steps it takes to move in that direction. So be specific. Bite-sized chunks. No one can work on an overwhelming big series of things that they need to fix in order to get better the next time around. So making sure that you're focusing on what it is that you need to achieve next is easiest to do if it is small and defined. So focus in on what specific thing, 1 or 2 pieces of feedback that would help the person improve in this task the next time that they seek to accomplish it. Be positive. That doesn't mean that you can only talk about the good stuff. It simply means that you frame things in terms of recognizing that the gaps you're talking about are obstacles to be overcome, and that they inevitably can be. You may also have heard of the sandwich or Oreo approach to giving feedback, where you start out with what went well, give positives about what you've just experienced, and then name 1 or 2 areas of improvement, and then sum it all up again by recapping all of that together. That's a really great way to do it. So for example, you could begin by saying, what I found really interesting about the presentation you just gave was the way in which you linked it clearly to the imperatives we discussed at the previous event. I was really clear on how each of those steps was going to help us achieve the goals we defined for ourselves. I think that you could do a little better in, right? Obviously, that assumes that you've created that feedback moment up front and that you are not about trying to promote your own goals, but rather help the person achieve the objective that they're working on. Positive framing is not just about saying all the good stuff. It's about saying what needs to happen to reach the goal. One, create a moment of buy-in. If you're in a setting where people are open to receiving feedback, like Toastmasters, that's kind of almost done for you, but you can still help by establishing a rapport with the person that you're giving the feedback to. 2, check your motives. So you're giving this feedback to help a person with an objective, not to demonstrate your own expertise. In fact, in many cases in which you will be called upon to give feedback, you may not be an expert in the subject matter. Be specific. Vague feedback is unhelpful, and it's sometimes a failing that we have when we first start out trying to flex our feedback muscle. We'll make general statements talking about how it was a great presentation or that project was really great. That's not really that helpful. If you can give specific examples, evidence from what it is that you've observed, that will really help the person internalize the feedback that you're giving. It'll help them be clear on what it is that they needed to accomplish and whether or not they did it effectively. Be bite-sized. Make sure that the feedback that you're giving has just 1 or 2 points for improvement that the person needs to remember and internalize, take away and achieve. The best feedback is around things that can be accomplished through actions that the person can implement in the next 24 to 48 hours. Be positive. You have the opportunity to give this huge gift of feedback and positively impact someone's journey. I recently took up playing the guitar, and I've been self-teaching different modes of painting for the longest time. I'm also a member of a club where we speak French and English, and everyone's at different points in their learning journeys. Does that intimidate you? Have you ever wanted to take on a new skill but thought, I can't teach an old dog new tricks? That's not true. Next week we'll be talking about the attitudes and attributes you need to be a successful learner. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this, and see you again soon.